Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We will be covering one of the most common mistakes that business analysts do, and most importantly, how to avoid them. So if you're new here, I'm a business analyst, I work in investment banking, and I'm also MBA and CQM qualified. Whether you're just starting out or you have been in industry for a while, this video will give you insight how to improve your work and also boost your effectiveness as business analyst. So the first common mistake is the poor gathering requirements. As the business analyst, one of our core responsibility is to understanding what our stakeholders want. So this process it's not very straightforward, and a lot of business analysts they are jumping into inclusion without understanding the big problem. Let's say you are working on the project and you assume that business needs more data. You create a complex report to find out that real issue was interpreting the data that they already had. So to avoid this, please spend time with your stakeholders at the beginning of the project. Ask open-ended questions, listen carefully, and don't hesitate to get clarification. So techniques like workshops or user interviews, they will help you to get a clear picture what actually business is looking for. And I have also described some of the main techniques how to approach the stakeholders at the beginning of the projects before we start to document any business requirements in this video. Please have a look. So once you have gathered the requirements, let's move to the mistake number 2. So mistake number 2, I call it failing to communicate clearly with stakeholders. Communication is the key for every role, but it's especially critical for a business analyst. So one of the major mistakes that business analysts do, that they don't communicate clearly their findings back to stakeholders. Imagine delivering a complex jargon report to non-technical stakeholders. They may have ended up confused or misunderstand results, and eventually this will lead to the delay in decision or wrong action, and of course it might have a huge impact on the project in overall. The solution here is to tailor your communication to your audience. Use simple language, highlight the key takeaways that will show them how data can impact the business in general directly. Remember that stakeholders care more about insight than the intricate details of your analysis. Mistakes number 3 is misinterpreting data. So as the business analyst, you are the bridge between raw data and actionable insights. Sometimes analysts fall in trap on relying to assumption which will lead to the incorrect conclusions. For example, you have noticed the drop in the revenue and you have concluded that this was due to the customer dissatisfaction, but in reality this was just seasonal trend. So in order to avoid this, make sure you clarify your assumption by conducting thorough analysis with multiple data sources. And tools like visualization will help you to see the big picture, which wouldn't have been noticed at the first glance. Next up, let's talk about overcomplicating the financial models. For example, in the banking area, building a robust financial models is the big part of the job. And sometimes analysts create over-complex models which are very hard to read, maintain, or even edit. For example, you might be tempted to include every variable into the model that you are currently building. But this can be backfire. So if your model is overcomplicated, there is many chances that even you or your team will be struggling to follow it. So in order to avoid, I recommend to focus on simplicity and clarity. Focus on the key drivers that actually impact your business and make sure that your models are easy to explain. So mistake number 5 is the lack of adaptability. As the business analyst, one of the most critical skills that you require is adaptability. Unfortunately, some analysts are becoming too rigid into their processes, struggling to adapt to changing requirements, new tools, or even switching to a new way of working. The resistance to change can slow down the project and eventually negatively impact on the project outcomes. Let's say your company decided to implement and to bring into the team new tool, which will improve the data visualization and insights. However, instead of embracing the new tool, you continue to using the old one that you are familiar and get used to it. So this approach will not just make your analysis less effective, but also create a big disconnection between you and your team. Another example is related to the communication. Imagine that the department they decided to implement a new tools which also will improve transparency between business analyst teams and also development teams. If you as a business analyst receive the new platform communication, for example it can be Jira or Confluence, so you risk creating the information silos. So what will happen then? So developers might not receive some critical information on the updates of the project, maybe some updates on the ongoing requirements, and also project manager can miss some important requirements which eventually will lead to delays and miscommunications. So to avoid this, you have to be open to continuous learning. Please try to stay up to date on new trends and technologies in the field that you are working in right now. For example, if your organization moving towards to implement or adapt some new system which has been used by other bank or by other system, please spend some time to learn about the system, to learn about advantages or benefits that system had brought to other people or other teams. Being adaptable also means a pivot quickly when the business needs, ensuring you stay relevant and efficient. Another common mistake is not validating the assumptions. Business analysts often work with the assumption, especially when they are forecasting and modeling. But the problem is, if those assumptions are incorrect, then the analysis will fail at the end. Lastly, it's very easy to get lost in the details as the business analyst. But one of the biggest mistakes as the analyst you can make is to avoid the big picture. You might find yourself focusing weeks and weeks on optimizing the process that only marginally improve a little part of the business or profitability, but missing in the same time a large strategic opportunities. So in order to avoid this, always keep the end goal in your mind. Ask the question, how your analysis, how is your documentation that you are about to present to your development team will have effect on the business in general. Being aware of the big picture will ensure that your efforts align with what most matters to the business. So there you have it. We just went through the 7 most common mistakes that business analysts do and what to do in order to avoid them. From gathering requirements to staying more adaptable, those are the tips that will help you to become more effective as the business analyst. If you found this video insightful, please don't forget to like, to subscribe, and also to share it with others in your network. Let me know in the comments if any of those mistakes you have experienced in your life, or maybe you have some tips that you would like to share with others. Thank you very much for watching me and see you in the next video.